you understand that it is not going to happen again in our lifetime because of Citizen United and the way everything...
Let me begin by thanking... It was a conservative thing. Let me thank Chelsea Gayowen, Helen Strain, and somebody I have known for a very long time, Susan Sarandon. And what I love about Susan, it's not only that she is one of America's great actresses, but unlike many others in Hollywood, she has used her celebrity status over the years to fight for social, economic, and environmental justice. Thank you, Susan. And let me begin by saying something that may surprise you, and that I think that our country is not quite as politically divided as the media often makes out. Let me give you an example of what I mean. Whether you are a progressive, as I am, whether you are a conservative, as many people in Idaho are, I think there are relatively few people who think that American democracy is about billionaires buying elections. My guess is that in Idaho or Vermont, what people mean when they talk about democracy is one person, one vote, not super PACs. And I think that almost all of us, regardless of our political beliefs, understand that when you have a handful of billionaires like the Koch brothers and Sheldon Adelson and a few others spending hundreds of millions of dollars to elect candidates who represent the wealthy and the powerful, I think we can all agree that is not democracy, that is oligarchy. To me, what democracy means is you have a vote, and you have a vote, and you have a vote. If you want to vote for me, great. If you want to vote against me, that's okay too. But what democracy is not about is when a handful of billionaires can control the political process in this country. Is why together we are going to overturn Citizens United. I have said it before and I will say it again. No justice nominated by me to the Supreme Court will get that position unless that candidate is loud and clear in saying they will vote to overturn Citizens United. Now, sadly, the United States has today one of the lowest voter turnouts of any major country on earth. And together, we're going to change that, because I think that in this great country, we should have one of the highest voter turnouts. And when you talk about democracy and involving people in the political process, whether they are poor or middle class or rich, getting people involved, it stuns me that we have Republican governors who are working overtime to suppress the vote. To literally make it harder for poor people or people of color or young people or old people to participate in our political process. For elected president, we're going to take those governors on, we're going to take their voter suppression on. And I say to those governors, if you don't have the guts to participate in free and fair elections, get out of politics, get out of politics. This country to have a vibrant democracy. I want people to be able to run for office, no matter what their views are, without having to beg wealthy people and corporations for contributions. I want everybody in this country, 18 years of age or older, to have the right to vote. End of discussion. But when we talk about America and what's going on in our country today, it is not just a corrupt campaign finance system which is undermining American democracy. That is a very important issue, but it's not the only one. Today in America, we also have a rigged economy. What that means is we have more wealth and income inequality than almost any major country on earth, and it is worse today than at any time in America since 1928. Now, you're not going to hear a lot of this on corporate media and the television or the newspapers, but here are the facts. Today in America, the top 1/10 of 1%, not 1%, 1/10 of 1% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. Got that? Over the last 30 years, there has been a massive transfer of wealth from the middle class to the top 1/10 of 1%. In America today, the wealthiest 20 people own more wealth than the bottom 150 million Americans, half of the American people. Now, when we talk about a rigged economy, let me give you a very concrete example of what that means. Anybody here know which family is the wealthiest family in America? A smart group of people, all right. The Walton family owns Walmart. They are the wealthiest family in America. Now, it turns out that the Walton family pays wages to their Walmart employees that are so low that many of their workers are forced to go on Medicaid, food stamps, and subsidized housing. Who pays for the food stamps and the Medicaid? You do. So this is what a rigged economy is about. A rigged economy is about working people paying higher taxes to subsidize the business of the wealthiest family in America. That is nuts. say to the Walton family, get off of welfare, pay your workers a living wage. But it is not only inequality in wealth, it is inequality in income, it is what is happening in our economy every day. Here are the facts. The good news is, thanks to President Obama, today our economy is far, far stronger than it was 7.5 years ago. Now, I understand that we have to be very sympathetic. Many of our Republican friends suffer from a very serious mental health issue called amnesia. We don't want to be hard on them, but they just have a hard time remembering where the economy was when President Bush left office. Now, I don't think it will help too much with them. I think their amnesia is so strong that nothing that I can say will change their world reality. But it is important to note that when President Bush left office in January 2009, we were hemorrhaging 800,000 jobs a month. 800,000 jobs a month. Now, many Republicans say, well, you know, we're only growing the economy by 250,000 jobs a month. Not enough. Well, they're right. I would like to see more. But you know what? Gaining 250,000 jobs a month, a hell of a lot better than losing 800,000. Now, many of my Republican friends are very concerned about the deficit, which is in fact a very serious issue, a national debt, very serious issue. But what they seem to have forgotten is that when George W. Bush left office, we had a $1.4 trillion deficit, the largest in the history of the United States of America. And over the last 7.5 years, we have cut that deficit very significantly. Now, many of my Republican colleagues were so busy fighting for the deregulation of Wall Street, and in fairness, they were not alone, there were Democrats there as well, that they seem to have forgotten that by the end of Bush's tenure, as a result of deregulation, the entire world's financial system was on the verge of collapse. Economists were literally worried that you would put your credit card into an ATM machine and nothing would come out. The world's financial system was on the verge of collapse when Bush left office. Needless today it is much, much stronger. So I say to my Republican friends, look, fair is fair. You want to criticize Obama, you want to criticize Bernie Sanders, that's fine. But don't forget how far we have come economically in the last 7.5 years. Fair is fair. But having said that, let me tell you something else which is true. And that is why we have made progress over the last 7.5 years. The truth is that for 30 or 40 years, before many of you were born, what we have been seeing is a decline in the American middle class. And that is a sad truth. That took place under Republican administrations. It took place under Democratic administrations. That is a fact. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that everybody here knows that in the last 20 years there has been an explosion of technology. we got robotics, we got all kinds of computers, we have cell phones. All of that means that every worker here is likely far more productive, producing more than a worker who had a similar job 20 or 30 years ago. Now, if you are producing more, you would think that one of two things happens. Either you're making more money or you're working fewer hours. The truth is, unfortunately and tragically, the opposite is what's going on. Millions of Americans today, despite the growth of technology, are working longer hours for lower wages. In my state of Vermont, and I expect here in Idaho, you have folks who are working not one job, but 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 3 jobs, trying to cobble together, 3 jobs, trying to cobble together enough income and health care to take care of your families. So what you got, and I see this all over the country, you got mom working hard, you got dad working hard, you got kids working hard, and yet 58% of all new income generated today is going to the top 1%. That's a rigged economy. You want a radical idea? Here is a radical idea. Together, we are going to create an economy that works for all of us, not just the 1%. What our campaign is about is something very radical, and that is telling the truth to the American people. And whether it is in our own personal lives, or whether it is politically or socially, the truth is not always pleasant. It's not something that we are happy to hear, but what is also right is you cannot go forward unless we deal with the real issues, with the truth of America. And the truth today is a corrupt campaign finance system. The truth is a rigged economy where most of us work longer hours for low wages. Almost all new income and wealth goes to the top 1%. And here is another unpleasant truth that we have to deal with. That in this great country of ours, we have more people in jail than any other country on earth. We have a broken criminal justice system. All of you know, just as an example, China, 4 times our size, China is a communist authoritarian country that doesn't look very well on dissent. We have more people in jail than China does. And what does that mean? It means, for a start, that we have to recognize why people end up in jail. One of the reasons is that we have a horrendously high rate of youth unemployment. Nationally, for white kids between 17 and 20 who graduated high school, real unemployment 33%. For Latino kids, 36%. For African American kids, 51%. In my view, we should be investing for our young people in education and jobs. Making sure our kids stay in school or have decent jobs, that's the investment, not jails and incarceration. In terms of criminal justice, nationally, we have got to take a look at a lot of local police departments. We are tired of seeing unarmed people, often African Americans, shot by the police. Now, we need a medical person here. All right, take a break for a second. We have a medical? Okay. Let's take a break for a second. All right? Good. Okay, all right. He's good. Okay, he's good. Sometimes when people are standing for too long and they get dehydrated, they have a problem, and I think the gentleman is fine. What the campaign is about is thinking outside of the box and not accepting the status quo as something that has to exist. In other words, we as a nation, this is the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, we should not be having more people in jail. 2.2 million people. We are spending $80 billion a year locking people up. You know what? It is a better investment to send a kid to the University of Idaho than to jail. And that's not a radical idea. We're spending $80 billion a year locking people up. Don't tell me that if we use that money for education, for jobs, and for other areas that we can't cut that prison population down significantly. Of course we can. I am the former mayor, Burlington, Vermont. I'd love you all to come up and visit us in Vermont someday. We are a very rural state, not quite as rural as Idaho. We're pretty rural, you'll enjoy it when you visit us. But I was a mayor of the largest city, Burlington, for 8 years. I've worked with police officers all my life. Vast, overwhelming majority of police officers are honest, they are hardworking. Being a police officer today is not an easy job. But when any police officer, like any public official, breaks the law, that officer must be held accountable. We need to demilitarize local police departments. We need to make police departments look like the diversity of the communities they serve. Now let me throw out a controversial idea. Some of you may agree with me, some of you may not. But I think it is time to rethink the so-called war on drugs. It turns out that over the last 30 years, many millions of Americans have acquired police records for possession of marijuana. Now, a police record is not a joke, because you go in, you apply for a job, and the guy asks you, your employer asks you, well, tell me about this. Well, we got a police record. You may not get that job, and if you don't get a job, you're not going to have any income. You're not going to get any income. You're in trouble. You may end up doing stupid things that will impact your life. All right? This is not a joke. Right now, some of you may know it, some of you may not, that under the Federal Controlled Substance Act, marijuana is listed as a Schedule I drug. And right alongside of it, as another Schedule I drug, is heroin. Now, I trust that every person here today knows that heroin is a killer drug. There are people who argue the pluses of marijuana and the negatives of marijuana, but nobody thinks marijuana is heroin. And that is why I have introduced legislation to take marijuana out of the federal control system. In our system of government, it is the decision of states whether or not to legalize marijuana. 4 states have. But it should not be a federal crime. Further, in my state of Vermont and neighboring New Hampshire and many parts of this country, we have a very serious crisis with opiate addiction, with heroin addiction, and every day people are dying of heroin overdoses. In my view, when we look at drug abuse and when we look at addiction, we have got to look at it as a health issue, not a criminal issue. Now, the reason that our campaign is doing as well as it is, we have now won 9 states. And if all of you come out to caucus tomorrow, we're going to win here in Vermont. The reason that we're doing so well is we are listening to the American people and not wealthy campaign contributors. One of the important differences between Secretary Clinton and myself is how we raise money for the campaign. It takes a lot of money, sadly, to run a national campaign. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, even more than that. Now, when we began this campaign, we had to make a very important decision, and that is, do we have a super PAC or not? We agreed with you. So look, we concluded at the end of about a tenth of a second that we do not represent Wall Street, corporate America, or the billionaire class. We don't want their money. We don't need their money. And what we did was to reach out to the middle class and working families and say, if you want to support a campaign which is going to stand up to big money and which is going to transform our society, help us out. And you know what happened? In the last 10 months, we have received well over 5 million individual campaign contributions. Anybody know what the average campaign contribution is? $27. And what this is revolutionary for contemporary American politics, because what it is showing is we can run a winning national campaign without being dependent on big money interests. To paraphrase Abraham Lincoln at Gettysburg, this is a campaign of the people, by the people, and for the people. Secretary Clinton has chosen another route to raise money. She has more than one super PAC, but her largest super PAC recently reported that it raised $25 million from special interests, including $15 million from Wall Street. Secretary Clinton has, as many of you know, given speeches behind closed doors on Wall Street for $225,000 a speech. Now, what I have said is, if you're going to get paid $225,000 for one speech, it must be an extraordinarily brilliant speech. It must be a speech which could turn around modern civilization. It must be a speech written in Shakespearean prose. And if it is such a great speech, the Secretary should share it with the whole world. But the real issue here is whether anybody can be a serious agent for change if you're taking a whole lot of money from Wall Street, the fossil fuel industry, the drug industry, and everybody else. Now, this campaign has been listening to working people all across this country. You know what workers are telling me? They can't make it on $8 or $9 an hour. $7.50. $7.25. All right, raise your hand if you're making less than $8 an hour here. Holy moly. Your waitress? And then your waitresses and waiters will make even less. Look. All right, well, welcome to America. We got millions of people. Here is the point. Media doesn't cover it, but it's time we did cover it. We have massive levels of income and wealth inequality, and yet millions of people are trying to make it on $7.25. Waitresses on even less than that. $8 an hour, $9 an hour. Here's the truth. You can't make it on $7 or $8 an hour. I just met yesterday a woman. She said, Bernie, I am working 60 hours a week. I have a little daughter. I don't have time to spend with my daughter. This is a story being told all over America. And what that tells me is that we have got to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 a week. Working 40 or 50 hours a week, you should not be living in poverty. And here is a similar issue, another issue. Our campaign is listening to senior citizens and disabled veterans. And all of us know how much we owe to the men and women who put their lives on the line to defend us. So not only should we be thanking our vets in words, we should be thanking them in deeds. And yet we have disabled vets and seniors in Vermont and in Idaho who are trying to make it on $11,000, $12,000 a year. You know what? You can't make it on $11,000, $12,000 a year. Now, I got Republican colleagues all over the Senate, all over the House. They want to lower and cut Social Security benefits. Well, I've got news for them. We are not going to cut Social Security. We're going to expand Social Security. This campaign has been listening to women. And here's what women have been telling me. For a start, they say, Bernie, how does it happen that when I go to work, I am making 79 cents on the dollar compared to men? And the answer is that has nothing to do with economics. That is just old-fashioned sexism, and we have to end it. This campaign has been listening to young people. And you know, I don't want to be hackneyed in saying this, but the young people obviously are the future of this country. And I have been very proud in state after state winning the vast majority of young people's votes. Which tells me that young people, and by young people I mean 45 or younger. I know if you're very young, you don't think 45 is young, but when you get older, you think 45 is just, you're a kid. But all over this country, state after state, we're winning people 45 or younger, which tells me our progressive agenda is the future of America. And what young people are telling me is they're saying, number one, given the fact that we're the wealthiest country in the history of the world, that we have so much technology and productivity, why is it happening that for the first time in the modern history of America, our generation, the young generation, may have a lower standard of living than their parents have? What we are experiencing today is the American dream in reverse. My parents didn't have any money, grew up with very little money. But their dream was that their sons would do better than they, and that has in fact happened. That is what the American dream is about, and we're not going to see that dream reversed. And what young people are also telling me is they say, look, everybody has told us how important education is. Everybody has told us, get the best education you can. Everybody has told us that we're living in a competitive global economy and we need a well-educated workforce to succeed. And then the young people say, if all of that is true, why are we leaving college $30,000, $50,000 in debt? Anybody here with student debt? Just what this campaign is about is thinking outside of the status quo, outside of the box. I want you all just to see, which the media will not report, the reality of what we're talking about right here in Boise, Idaho. I asked people how many of them are making less than $10 an hour. A lot of hands went up. I asked people here how many of them have student debt. A lot of hands went up. The question is, if we think that education is so important, why is it that we are punishing millions of people because they did the right thing and they got an education? I talked to a kid in Iowa. He dropped out of college, 2 years into college, $60,000 in debt. Talked to a doctor in Burlington, Vermont, went to medical school, $300,000 in debt. Somebody who graduated dental school, young woman, $400,000 in debt. Talk to a guy in Nevada, took out his student loan 25 years ago. He is more in debt today than he was when he took it out. Talked to a guy a few days ago, $160,000 in debt. He's going to lose his home, and he has 4 kids. All right, here is the point. If you take a deep breath and you think outside of the status quo, ask yourself, if we think education is important, if we are going to be a competitive global economy, we need to reward people for getting an education, not punishing them. Think about this. 100 years ago, very courageous and foresighted people, they said every child in America, regardless of his or her income, should be able to get a free public education. Now think about it. 100 years ago, what they were saying is it's not fair for rich families to have their kids go to school while working class kids were working on the farm or in factories. And they said all kids have got to get a public education. That was extraordinary. Today, in 2016, think about it. The world has changed. The economy has changed. Technology has changed. People need more education than they got 50 years ago if they're going to succeed in the economy. When we talk about public education today, it is not good enough to talk about first grade through 12th grade. We have got to make public colleges and universities tuition free. Is this a radical idea? It really isn't. The world has changed. And we have got to change with that world. If you need more education, Germany does it, Scandinavia does it, countries all over the world do it. We can do it too. Now people say, and this often is a criticism levied at me, Bernie, you think too big, you're too radical. Where are you going to get the money for this? Now I want you to think about this. 8 years ago, as a result of the greed, the recklessness, and the illegal behavior on Wall Street, our economy suffered the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression, right? Somebody just mentioned they lost their house. Millions of people lost their homes, their jobs, and their life savings. Now what did Congress do? No, they did something, they bailed them out. Now somehow, for the establishment types, it was perfectly natural. Why would you not bail out the crooks on Wall Street who destroyed the economy? Hey, that's what you're supposed to do. Well, this is what I think. I think that right now, we should impose a tax on Wall Street speculation. And that will bring in enough money to, number one, make public colleges and universities tuition free. Number two, substantially lower student debt in this country. If Congress could bail out Wall Street, it is Wall Street's time to help the middle class of this country. Once again, this is not the kind of thinking the establishment wants you to do. But again, this is common sense. It is not radical. We have money to bail out Wall Street. We have money to make sure the kids do not graduate college deeply in debt. Not a radical idea. This campaign is listening to the Latino community. telling me that with 11 million undocumented people in this country, they are tired of living in the shadows, tired of living in fear, tired of being exploited. They want comprehensive immigration reform and a path. This campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the African American community. And they are asking a pretty simple question: how does it happen that communities like Flint, Michigan are in the condition that they are in? I was in Flint, Michigan a few weeks ago. What I saw and what I heard was literally hard for me to believe was happening in America in 2016. Children there are being poisoned by excessive lead in the water. And all over this country, we have minority communities where the schools are falling apart, where employment is sky high, housing and healthcare are inadequate. And our brothers in the African American community are asking is, how can we spend trillions of dollars fighting a war in Iraq that we never should have fought?